Ladies and gentlemen, we will now start with the panel discussion, which is on a very relevant theme. This is on women's safety and challenges in public road transport. I request Mr. Flosh and Shri Rao to take their respective seats in the audience, and I request Shri Sanjay Bandhapadhyay to kindly remain seated as he is our session chair. May I now request our other eminent speakers or panelists for the session to kindly join us. May I invite Dr. Ashish Verma, Assistant Professor, IISc Bangalore, Ms. Ranjana Menon from WRI India, Ms. Akshina Tejas Khate, Urban Environment Planner from TERI, Ms. Sarika Pandabhat from WRI, and Ms. Kalpana Vishwanath from Safety PIN. Ladies and gentlemen, extremely pleased to have with us Shri Bandhapadhyay as our session chair. As Joint Secretary in the Ministry, he is entrusted with the assignments of road transport policy, road safety, the Motor Vehicle Act, WP 29, etc., to name a few. He is also responsible for coordinating the drafting of the new Road Transport and Safety Bill for introduction in the Cabinet, and he started the scheme for cashless treatment of road accident victims. He has held several prestigious and versatile portfolios in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, extend a very warm welcome to our panelists, and may I request Session Chair to kindly make his opening remarks and chair this panel discussion.
I welcome my fellow panelist. Mr. Amit Bhatt is the presenter, he is from Embark. Ms. Kalpana Vishwanathan from Jagori and Safety Pin. Ms. Ranjana Menon from Embark India. Dr. Ashish Verma is Assistant Professor in IISc Bangalore. Ms. Sarika Panda. Sarika Panda from WRI. Are we expecting some people are late, I think?
Yeah, they are.
So some of them may be joining. So on the issue of today's topic is women's safety and challenges in public transport. So in the topic, its first focus is on the women's safety, challenges in the public transport, and I think challenges on the transport in general. And as you know, this topic started long back in India. We have been district magistrates in several districts for several years, and those who are aware of that this issue comes up before the police and the district organizations off and on, and the happenings in Delhi, which shook the entire country some years ago, was very unfortunate, and serious thinking started taking place. So we have seen that because of shortage of focus on certain issues, the enforcement at times remains weak because the same resources are spread over different issues. Therefore, at that time everybody woke up and wanted to have a solution in which the women force, who now account for 48.5% of the population, and they are one of the most important bread earners in our country, and they have to travel to work to different places. Even when men are working in the office, they have to cater for the other things of the houses. So public transport has to be safe, the transport has to be safe. Many things were done, many decisions were taken. Investments came into the public transport to make it safe. And while we will discuss these things, the suggestions and solutions will come forth. I request Mr. Amit Bhatt to start the session with a presentation on this issue.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The session title is Women's Safety and Challenges in Public Transport. And so there are challenges in public transport and women's safety. I would really speak more on the women's safety side because some of the challenges bit will be covered in the subsequent roundtable on the status of bus industry in India. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just set this context, give you a brief background presentation, and then the experts on the dais and within the esteemed audience would probably discuss a kind of way forward on this very important and critical issues of women's safety in public transport. So if you look at the whole background, so women constitute about 48.5% of the overall population. But what is really interesting is that they have a pretty low share in terms of the workforce participation. And what we are seeing, even that share is going down. This is very critical. Because if we are really looking at economy which is going to grow, we need a lot more women in the workforce participation. And what is even more important is that the workforce participation in urban area, surprisingly, is lower than the rural area. And therefore, we need to do something about it. And if you look at the India's ranking in terms of the global scenario, we are ranked at about 120th out of 131 countries in terms of the overall global workforce participation of women. And therefore, this needs some serious attention around it. If you look at, and one of the main reasons is the safety and security of women, especially in the workforce and in the commute bit. So if you look at the overall scenario in terms of crime against women, it has been rising, which is very unfortunate. And incidents like rape and all were reported about 35,000 in the year, 34,000 in the year 2012. And which is very, very significant and stark because this is a big deterrent to women's overall lifestyle, livelihood, but also in terms of the workforce participation. So the safety of women in public transport is really, really critical. Now, if you look at some of the incidents which have happened in Delhi, and we know that if you look at some of the studies which have been done, which have found that about 51.4% women were sexually harassed in public transport. And what is even more striking and important is that almost 49% men saw these harassments happening. And that is really the big challenge. But the problem is not confined to Delhi. It's more of a national level problem, a problem which is in Southeast Asia. So if you look at some of the reactions or some of the solutions which have come up to address this issue, a lot of solution focuses around technology. So whether it is CCTV camera or apps or some of the issues like reservation of seats for women, these have had limited impact. So the point is we need to understand this whole issue in detail. So what we did from our side is that we did a very deep dive study in Bhopal with the support of Bhopal Municipal Corporation, Bhopal City Link Limited, and a project gone from DFID, was to actually look at what are the critical issues around women's safety in public transport. So one is that we found was, in terms of travel pattern, if you look at, there is a slightly difference in terms of the travel profile of women vis-a-vis men. So if you look at, a lot of women travel with dependents, whether it is children, grandparents, which is different to that of men, so which is very unique. Second, the expense of transport of women is less than men, which is also reflected in terms of the choice of transport modes as well as the availability of these modes. The other interesting that we found was, if you look at the choice parameter, and this is all Bhopal data, the first parameter for selecting a transport mode is definitely the cost. But the next important parameter for women is safety, whereas for men it is time. So this is again very, very interesting that we found from the study. The third is, if you look at the infrastructure again is a big deterrent to safety. So for example, we found that most of the street lights were not working when they were needed. Bus stops on standard road did not have bus shelters, and which exposes women to the weather, and especially around rain or fog or when there is low visibility, it really hampers their safety. Again, the height was a big deterrent to footpath. There was no standard height, therefore going on and off the footpath also became major issue, which resulted in women standing on the road and waiting for buses, which again increased the chances of harassment and physical abuse. Again, a lot of the CCTV cameras that we found in Bhopal were not operational. So if you are looking at technology as a solution, if the technology doesn't work, then it really not addresses the problem. Now this is very interesting, and it is very shocking to me also, is that almost 88% women were harassed during public transport, using public transport. Now what is even more is that half of that number experiences harassment on a regular basis. So you're really looking at 40% people experiencing harassment on a regular basis when they are using public transport as the mode of commute. And therefore, when you are looking at promoting public transport, when you are looking at encouraging people to use public transport, this is again a very big deterrent. We spoke to the drivers and conductors. Almost 100% of them said women's safety is not a major issue in Bhopal, which is very contrary. And what is even more surprising is 30% of these people felt that women are equally responsible for the harassment. Now that again shows the sensitivity or the knowledge about this subject with people who are operating these buses or who are interfacing between customers is striking. Some of the common concerns that came out was lack of bus shelters, design of bus stops. So for example, we know that, and we saw in one of the bus stops in Bhopal, that lighting plays a very important role in safety. But what we found in one of the bus stops towards the periphery of the city, that entire lighting was over the bus stop, not on the surrounding. And therefore it created a fishbowl effect. That earlier maybe a female passenger was visible from about, let's say, half a kilometer, but now with the entire lighting on the bus stop, she was visible from about 5 kilometers. So it actually increased the harassment levels. So this is very interesting, is how do we design the bus stops. Street light, no access to security, lack of information, and especially crowding during the peak hours that we found. Now we looked at some preliminary ideas of what could be a design solution, right? So one thing that we found, and this again was very striking for me, maybe Ranjana and all who were involved, they pretty much knew about it, that incidents of violence against women, there are certain types of incidents which are common across these 4 legs of journey, which is going to a bus stop, waiting for a bus at the bus stop, boarding the bus, and then traveling in the bus. So if you look at these 4 legs of journey, there are certain incidents which are common across these 4 legs. But there are certain incidents which are very peculiar to a particular leg of the journey. So for example, what we found was, when an informal bus used to stop at a bus stop, the tendency of the conductor was to come and stand on the door of the bus to bring the passengers inside. But what it did, because he was standing on the door of the bus, it actually decreased the width of the bus. And therefore the occurrence of these incidents increased during the boarding of the bus. So when we said if you're looking at designing, we need to look at something which is slightly more comprehensive, which deals with service planning, which deals with institutional capacity, which deals with infrastructure and vehicles, as well as enforcement and grievance redressal. So looking at service planning, what can we do, right? So one of the things that we found was that especially in the night time, let us say after 8, when women are traveling, can we have something like a stop on request? Because the bus stops are really dark, there is no natural surveillance in terms of people there, and women feeling very uncomfortable in this journey. So can we really think of doing something like a stop on request, especially in the off-peak hours, night hours or very early morning hours. Second, around institutional capacity, what we found, and this is probably true in most of the STUs, that there is not a significant participation of women at a mid and senior level in terms of when the services are being planned. So a lot of this requirement of women never gets factored in the design of the infrastructure, design of services. So can we look at something like a manager vigilance and women's safety as an integral piece in the overall institutional structure? Because with that you can bring some of these issues in the planning phase itself. Third was around infrastructure and vehicle. Can we design infrastructure and vehicle which is much more safer for all the category of road users? Something like a well-designed bus stop, and this is a picture from Ahmedabad BRT, is that the bus stop is so beautifully protected and designed that you feel very comfortable when you are inside the bus stop. So can we create something like this for a normal bus stops that we are designing? And then enforcement and grievance redressal. So what can we do? Because when we were doing this survey, we found that when an incident happens in the bus and a lady passenger responds to that incident, the drivers and the conductors don't know what to do. So they start getting panicked, what to do. And the natural reaction is to tell the woman to, okay, madam, aap chup ho jaiye, we will take something, we'll do something. But there is no, can we develop some standard operating procedures? Because the helplines that we saw in the bus, all the helplines were scratched, so you can't even read the numbers. So can we create some standard operating procedures around redressing, especially when the incidents happen? So something like a adequate number or mobile patrol units, and they have done some interesting work like Nirbhaya Patrol in Bhopal and MP. So with this I would like to thank you, and I will leave the session to the chair for subsequent discussions.
The Government of India had brought out a project for under the Nirbhaya Fund. To start with, it was planned that there will be emergency button on the public transport vehicles, then the major transport vehicles, that is the buses and the taxis, will be tracked through GPS, and on the buses there will be CCTV recording. And we will be, initially it was thought that the project will go in all the towns which have, according to 2011 census, population more than 1 million. But due to some shortage of funds, it is now restricted to 2. We were trying to bid it out around 4 or 5 months back. Now the bid was also, the RFP was also uploaded on the website. But because of the concerns of other ministries and the shortage of fund, it will now go for bidding in another month's time for 2 towns, major town, as a pilot project. Delhi already has one of those, the system running, but it will be Mumbai and Bangalore, so that we can then take it to the other part of the country. Now I will request my panelists to give opening remarks, and all of us will have to complete it in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So I request Ms. Kalpana Vishwanathan. If will take time? No. Okay, you are ready. Right. So you can sit and I think speak from here.
Actually, I'd like to do a presentation.
But we all have to finish in 15 minutes, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Right, thank you. Then after that, Ms. Ranjana Menon and then Dr. Ashish Verma.
Good morning. I'm Kalpana Vishwanath, and I've been associated on working on around women's safety in cities for more than 10 years with several organizations, including an NGO in Delhi called Jagori and another organization called Safety Pin, which has recently come up with an app on collecting data in cities. You know, public transport, I think I'm really happy to be here today and to see that a group like this is discussing the issue of women's safety, that you think it's important within looking at the issue of public transport and looking at the issue of safety within public transport, you know, because women's groups and others, the UN and all, we've been talking about women's safety, but it's nice to know that other actors such as yourselves who are actually involved in the industry of public transport are looking at these issues. Now, just to sort of, you know, we talk about women's safety, it's become quite a catchword today, the whole issue of women's safety, but what are we talking about? Women's safety is not just the act of violence. What happens is when you lack safety, women feel restricted in their mobility. They feel unable to participate in social life. So it's important to not only address the fact that there's an actual incidence of violence, but actually the fear of violence determines women's ability to move around the city safely or comfortably. We've heard of cases of where families take their daughters out from school because of lack of safety on public transport. Women are not able to take certain kinds of jobs because of lack of safety and lack of public transport. And basically the burden of responsibility has generally been falling upon women. And I think in the past few years we've been seeing quite a bit of change in this, where the government and other institutions have proactively begun to see that they need to take a role in addressing women's safety and making public spaces, public transport, etc. safer for women. So really the idea of safety is not only security. So while we think we need to have CCTV cameras and better policing, the idea of safety is something beyond only security. It is the whole idea of how do you prevent and reduce violence against women, also reduce the fear of violence. And I really reiterate this, because it's not as if women face violence every day. I agree. But every day when we step out, we fear we might face violence. And this fear begins to determine, should I go to this place? Should I do this? Should I let my daughter go out? Should I let my daughter work, etc.? So the ramifications of the lack of safety are much wider than the incident of violence. And I think it's important to understand that. So women's daily life in cities, just to give you an idea, public spaces need to be designed in a better way. But I'm going to focus primarily on public transport because this is the area that this conference is focusing on. And I'm really happy that I'm speaking after Amit, because he's brought up many of the issues that also I would like to reiterate and sort of reinforce, that we need to we need to support mobility of women, and this has to be done proactively. It has to be done proactively, and we have to create conditions whereby women feel more mobile. It's not just an issue of doing certain kinds of small changes, but in fact changing the way that we think women should be using public spaces. Just to add to some data that already has been spoken about, there have been surveys done in many cities. And the public transport, inside public transport and waiting for public transport are two spaces that has consistently come up as where women feel the most unsafe. Now, if they feel unsafe waiting for and riding public transport, what does this mean? This means that eventually women's mobility gets affected. Now, what is one of the key elements of city life? It is the ability to move around freely. It's the ability to go for a job, to go study, to go for entertainment, to go for shopping. Now, if that gets curtailed, then women's right to the city, in fact, is being curtailed. So the lack of safety impacts on women's right to safety. In Mumbai also, surprisingly, we found that there was very high reportage. For example, they said 46% said in buses, and 17% said they've faced harassment inside trains. So I think it is very crucial that we begin to address the issue of public transport, and as the chair mentioned, the Government of India has started taking steps, and it's very welcome, but I think a lot more also needs to be done. I just want to reiterate, Amit also mentioned it, but research around the world has shown that women use the way women travel is very different from the way men travel. You know, they do much more shorter trips around the city. So they go to the market, they go drop their child at the bus stop, they go and pick up their child, they may go run an errand for somebody, they also go to work, they also go to university. So they combine different usages and they do chaining, so they do multi-purpose trips. So whereas often public transport design has kept in mind the male worker who leaves in the morning, goes to one place, stays there the whole day and comes back in the evening. But if you want to design public transport for the woman user, you in fact need to look at the usage of public transport a little differently. So there, you know, as I said, women make much more complex journeys. Research has also shown that women tend to use public transport, higher usage in families. For example, if a family is able to afford a motorcycle or a car, it is very likely that the man will use it. So women continue to use public transport. So we do need to understand that there is a vital need to design public transport in ways that women are able to use it. So, for example, even things like land zoning policies. So I think the issue of transport goes beyond just the actual transport. So if you have spaces which are only office spaces or only commercial spaces, what happens is after certain points of time, they become deserted. So even urban planners need to look at designing of public spaces in order to understand how to create life around public transport hubs. One of the most important findings that a lot of our safety audits have shown is that there are two factors which impinge on women's feeling of safety in cities. One is lighting, which is a very obvious one. The second one is actually what we call the eyes on the street. That is the visibility of people on the street. So if you have a bus stop which is completely deserted, after 8 o'clock a woman would feel uncomfortable to stand there. Whereas if we begin to design our bus stops so that they are located, one, in more busy areas, and secondly, if they are not in busy areas, to create life around the bus stop, such as having vendors or other kinds of activity around the bus stop, so that you are actually having life around the streets. I think so these are some of the kind of ways that we need to envisage it as a broader issue. So one is actually at the point of the bus stop. Secondly is at the design of the bus stop itself, but the design of the space around the bus stop. The third is inside the bus. And of course, fourthly is if something happens in a bus or the bus stop, how does one respond? How do we have quick methods of response? Because the truth is, the reporting of violence that takes place on the road or on the bus is quite low. And if you think about it, it's quite rational. I'm on my way to work. Somebody harasses me while I'm in the bus. I do not actually have the time to stop, to go to a police station, to make a complaint. But I would like a system. I would like some form of redressal that at that moment I can at least tell the driver, the conductor, somebody can come, something can happen, that man can be offloaded from the bus. So we need to look at different methods that we can address the violence and begin to create a society where we say that this kind of violence is unacceptable. What has happened is actually this kind of low-level harassment every day has become acceptable. It is part of life. You know, people don't even question it. Certainly if a rape occurs, everyone is willing to, go up in arms and say it's a problem. But what about the everyday violence that women face? And I think this is something we have to turn our minds to. And public transport is a very important one is this. So how do we sort of create more gender-responsive public transport? So we do need to look at the way bus routes are being designed. This request stop program that Amit also spoke about is an important one. Certainly after dark, if buses can stop closer to where women have to get down rather than walking from a bus stop, especially women if they're traveling alone. We're not suggesting that it's necessary in all situations, but certainly if a woman's traveling alone, it's important. The bus stop design and metro and subways should also be women-friendly, For example, in Delhi currently, 10 years ago when we did our initial safety audits, the bus stop design was very different from what it is today. So the current bus stop design in Delhi is a very friendly and safe bus stop design. Why is it safe? Because one, it's well lit. Secondly, it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. So you can actually see if someone is walking behind. You know. Thirdly, it is transparent. You may have some ads, but by and large, it's a transparent bus stop. If you remember 10 years ago, Delhi, what kind of bus stops we had, they were completely closed, and behind the bus stop was used either as a urinal for men, which was very unsafe for women to walk past. So actually, just physical design can have an impact on this thing. Now, women-only metros and buses is a bit of a controversial issue, and I agree that we cannot continuously find ways of finding only women-only spaces. But sometimes in certain situations, for example in the Delhi metro, where we have very high volume of travel and very crowded metro cars at certain times of the day, the Delhi government did respond with introducing only women metro car, and it has proved, I think, very beneficial for women. So I think we need to have certain kinds of options like that in some situations. We also need to look at cycling and non-motorized transport lanes that women and children can use safely. Currently, the way that our roads are in most of our big cities, it would take a very brave woman and child to cycle through it, you know. So I think we need to begin to look at even non-motorized ways of transport, well-lit, designed walk paths around it, affordable public transport, and finally, which is very important, I think, in the Indian situation, is to organize our informal modes of transport. We have many, many informal ways. We have formal methods, and the government of India has looked at putting marshals, they have put panic buttons, etc. in some of these. But the truth is, a very large percentage of our population continues to use informal methods, which is your Fat Sevas, your shared autos, your RTVs, your Grameen Sevas, the range of things. And those things also need to be brought under some kind of regulation, some kind of way that they function in a more organized manner, and they are responsible for even looking at issues of safety. For example, today, the Delhi Metro, there are many metro stations when you get off, you are completely bombarded by auto drivers who literally fall on top of you to get you onto a metro. Now, it cannot be such a difficult thing to organize that auto service outside a metro station. It just needs the political will and the idea that we need to organize it, and that's not happening. In addition to this, we also need to look at, I think, gender mainstreaming within transport. You know, it's a very male-dominated space. One is really to have gender sensitization for transport staff, transport officials, etc. But also to have more women within the transport sector. You know, more women drivers, more women auto drivers, more women conductors. If you travel around the world, you'll find in many, many countries, bus drivers are almost completely women. But I think we need to sort of look at that here. Just to give you some ideas, as Jalburi, we've done some work with the DTC in Delhi, where we've worked with training bus drivers and conductors on what they can do if actually some kind of harassment happens when they're in the bus. And finally, we did a series of audits of all bus terminals in Delhi to look at different issues such as lighting, security, usability, and things like that. So in short, just to conclude, I think that there are many dimensions that we need to address when we talk about safety of public transport for women. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kalpana Vishwanathan, for an excellent presentation. Now I request Ms. Ranjana Menon to... You have a presentation or you have... Speak. Before this, I'll take the opportunity that while I told you about the Nirbhaya Fund, so the resources which was now a constraint, a bit of a constraint, that but a large amount of fund of it is going to the Home Ministry to develop a system that is a multi-channel system for bringing control rooms in the states for the calls being made on the issues of women's safety. Like there will be apps, phone calls to the call center, which will land to a call center based on the location. The nearest police patrol will be alerted and it will reach to the source of generation of the call, and this will roll out to all the states of India.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think Amit and Kalpana have already covered like a lot of good points. I've made notes of a few more points that I would like to discuss. The first point I would like to discuss is about technology-centric solutions. So there's a lot of discussions around the country about having CCTV cameras across, but just if you think about a crowded bus, imagine you have a CCTV camera and the bus is crowded. If a woman is being harassed, the CCTV camera is not going to be able to capture this harassment because of the crowd in the bus. In fact, there's even research which shows that CCTV cameras are more effective in countering armed robbery or armed attacks rather than actually making women feel safer. Kalpana even talked about when you design bus stops, you have to look at eyes on streets, so you actually make sure you have vendors or you have people around the bus stops. That research has also showed that women actually prefer having people around rather than having a CCTV camera which would monitor them. You would assume that having a CCTV camera would actually make women feel safer, but it really doesn't. It might be more effective to actually have vendors around the bus station. The other point that we talked about was about segregation. You can consider segregation only as a short-term measure. Just because you have a few women-only buses or you have women-only compartments, it's not going to make women feel any safer. It should be a short-term measure until you try and solve all the other problems in the ecosystem. So this is an intermediary measure, and I think all public transport agencies should try and understand that as an intermediary measure. Third is with human-centric solutions. When we did this project in Bhopal, as Amit showed, while the level of harassment was really high, the perception of harassment was very narrow among the ground staff. So we tried to do some gender sensitization training with the ground staff, and there are two things that came about very interestingly. One is that the ground staff actually felt more confident when the police was involved in giving training, because they feel that if they have the support of the police, that's the only way they would actually react if a situation happened. The other point that was made was when you're training your ground staff, you need to make sure that you train some of the mid-level management as well, or the people that the ground staff report to. Because if as a driver or a conductor, I feel that I intervene in a situation where a woman is caught in a problem and I don't get the support from my senior management, then I'm going to avoid taking any risk. I'm not going to take any measures. This is a problem that came up. So in any state road transport undertaking, if you are looking at gender sensitization training, you should make sure that you actually train your mid-level staff to ensure that the ground level staff feels confident and also involve the police in the training. The other thing that we saw was in relation to women's access to economic opportunities. The very simple fact that 70% of the passengers that we talked to mentioned that in their household, women actually spend less than men on transport expenses. So women obviously have lesser money to spend on transport. So you need to look at how you can design passes, bus passes, which will actually help women and encourage them to use public transport a little more. Or even for the fact that the way the tickets are sold right now, you would sell it for each trip. So what happens when a woman does trip chaining is, in the current scenario, you are penalizing the women for making multiple short trips. You need to see all those trip legs as one journey, and you need to design a bus pass which would actually cater to all these together. So you need to see these problems of women and design passes accordingly. The other interesting example which we saw in Bhopal was Nirbhaya vans. So when an incident happens on the bus don't necessarily have to go to a police station. In fact, the police van or the patrol vans would actually come to the spot of the crime. This actually increases a woman's confidence in reporting the crime because they feel that they get the support of the conductors and other passengers. Now, if a conductor was to say the bus is to be taken to a police station, obviously all the other passengers are going to disagree because it's going to cause inconvenience, it's going to be a waste of time for them. But if the police van was supposed to come close to them, they would actually feel more confident reporting this. So the key point here is, while it's important that a public transport agency looks at women's safety, it's very important that you involve the other stakeholders in the city when you're trying to solve the problem. Two very important stakeholders that I can think of from the top of my head is the municipal corporation, who's responsible for the bus stops, and the police, who are responsible for the enforcement and grievance system. So you need to work on partnerships. You can't actually provide for this all by yourself. So you need to involve these other stakeholders as well. The last point I would like to mention is we did talk about Nirbhaya, the Nirbhaya funds. But if you look at the first allocation, and it was about 1,000 crores, after 2 years, more than 800 crores of the Nirbhaya fund was unused, because there was no solutions that were coming from Indian cities on how to solve these issues. So there's really a need for all of us to actually discuss and come up with concrete solutions that we can implement on ground. Thank you.
Next, I will request Ms. Dr. Ashish Verma.
Thank you, Chairman, and also the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Incidentally, we were doing this research on understanding service gap analysis of public buses in Bangalore, especially with respect to women's safety. And when this invitation came for the panel discussion, I was more than happy to say yes, because I think this is an apt occasion to share some of the preliminary results that we have. Of course, due share to all my co-authors of this work. We actually started with the overall service gap analysis of BMTC through research that we did earlier, and we did that by understanding the gap between expectations and perceptions of BMTC commuters over dimensions of tangible reliability, responsiveness, assurance, empathy. Empathy is the dimension where we look at how caring and individual attention the firm provides to the customers, including taking care of the women's safety issues. And when we did the analysis, we actually found the gap to be the maximum with respect to the empathy dimension from the service gap analysis. So we thought we'll do further investigation, especially looking at the women's safety issue, and then that's how we started on this study. So the whole objective of this study was to see how safe women feel when they travel on buses in Bangalore, and we looked at specifically aspects of safety at bus stops, safety while boarding, alighting the bus, and safety while traveling in the bus. The study area was Bangalore. We focused on women who are traveling or who use BMTC buses. It was a primary questionnaire survey. Questions were divided in 6 sets of questions with a sample size of about 503 individuals that we collected, and we followed a very methodological approach to understand the service gap analysis and how the factors of socio-demography and the various variables or factors are contributing to the perception that women have with respect to safety or otherwise. So we used factor analysis and then did some modeling to understand how the perceptions are related to their socio-demographic factors and the other things. Of course, it's premature to make generalization out of these results because we don't have data from other cities. So our sets, questions were broadly into social demographic, travel details, and overall perception of safety. Also questions related to safety at bus stops, safety while boarding, alighting, while traveling. Also questions related to common safety-related problems faced by the women and what expectations they have from the bus operator. And this is just a glimpse of the questions that we had in questionnaires. Also with respect to, for example, the safety inside the buses, and the respondents were asked to rate each of these questions on a 5-point Likert scale. For example, whether drivers and conductors are courteous, or crimes against women are more in empty buses, and so on. Similarly, questions related to what kind of problems they face, whether it is theft, jewelry snatching, eve-teasing, molestation, crime against children, or any other kind of things, and how often they face these. So just to give a brief picture, not really all the results. What we found from the statistics was 33% of the women respondents who travel daily do not feel safe while traveling in the bus. That's what overall what emerged out. Interestingly, as was also pointed earlier, 76% of the women respondents feel unsafe at the bus stops, and about 80% while boarding alighting. So the whole perception of safety is also closely related to the condition at the bus stops, and also the situation in which the women board and alight the buses. Unlike the earlier results, in our case, every woman surveyed responded that they had faced one or the other safety issues while using the bus. And interestingly, 61% of those who had faced these issues have continued to use the bus service, which essentially means that they have got in terms with this whole situation that molestation is a day-to-day thing, and it's simply something that cannot be done much. Our remaining 39% of the women have stopped using buses, and as and when they get the first opportunity, they have shifted to either two-wheelers, auto rickshaw, or cars. So what we are eventually doing by having a unsafe environment for women to travel in public buses, we are forcing them from a sustainable mode of transport to unsustainable modes of transport, which is somehow we have to stop. From the model that we developed, and some very interesting results that we came out, what it says is women who are older and have higher educational qualification are more likely to feel safe. That means as their age increases, as their qualification is high, there is more likely for them to feel safer. This essentially means probably that with experience and with better education, they are more aware of their rights, of how they can tackle the situation and handle the situation. Also, employed women who are older tend to feel safe. So what this essentially means is that maybe non-workers, women who are non-workers, who are homemakers, who are less qualified, would probably feel much more unsafe as compared to those who are working, those who are highly qualified. So it's a challenge to really have a safe commuting for those women also. Also, employed women of any age who feel that they are safe at the bus stop also feel safe while traveling in the bus. So the perception of safety at the bus stops also carries forward their perception about the safety while traveling. So if they feel unsafe at the bus stops, they are more likely to feel unsafe during travel also. Same was the case with boarding and alighting also. And also, if they are comfortable or if they feel safe in the presence of co-passengers or when the staff are present, then their perception of safety overall about the travel in bus would also be positive. So these are some of the findings that we got. Now, what can we do with these findings? Some possible measures, and I would focus only from the Bangalore context. Especially for the local government operators and even media, it's equally important for them to focus on the situations or issues while boarding and alighting and at the bus stops. Not just what happens inside the buses or when they're traveling, if they really want to give a comprehensive coverage to the women's safety issues in buses. Also, we should do promotional schemes, because what really comes out is if women really travel or get experience in traveling, maybe it will make them feel more safer, and also it will improve or it will sensitize the other co-passengers also. So having bus days, for example, for women, where we encourage women to take free rides on these bus days in buses, have more seats or special provisions especially on those dates to promote them to travel, which would also sensitize the other passengers. Information is extremely important. For example, accurate information about routes and the arrival time of buses would decrease the waiting time of the women passengers at the bus stop, would probably help in preventing some of the safety issues. I mean, if we take, for example, case of Nirbhaya, if the couple would have known which bus is coming next and which route they are supposed to take, they would never have would have taken a wrong bus and got into this situation. Also, the safety at the bus stops. The major issue in Bangalore with BMTC is that the bus stops are not owned by BMTC; they are owned by BBMP. So when BBMP think about putting the bus stops, they think from the revenue considerations, where the advertisement can be seen, where they can get more revenue. So it's important that bus stops, which are important component of the service of BMTC, it should be under the control of BMTC. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish Verma. May I now request Akshima Ghate. You have a presentation? No, just speak. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Interestingly, we're talking about women's issues in transport, and what I see in front of me is a room full of men. And why I want to raise that point is, it's a very important point that we are the people who are sitting in this room who are providing the bus services, the public transport that we are talking about. We are the ones who are designing the buses. We are designing all the rules and regulations with regard to how people will move with regard to mass transit in our cities. So, I mean, the very first point I want to flag is that we hardly have women planning in those roles, in those policy making and decision making roles, and this clearly reflects that the whole planning for public transit services in our cities, in our country, is essentially male centric. No problem with that till now, and I think if time has come that we realize that we need to make women as the center for our public transit planning. Not forget, if you don't want to think about it as a social issue, as an environmental issue, just think of it as a business opportunity. Women are the most captive users that you could ever have as public transport corporations or as, city public transport. India has one of the lowest per capita vehicle ownership. People hardly have cars. Yes, some people have two-wheelers. And slowly this is changing. And what this indicates is that in whichever family there is a two-wheeler or car, most likely it is accessible only to head of the household, which is male in our society. So what it clearly indicates that women in our society, be it, any income class, except of course the highest income classes, they are either walking or they're using public transit. And what we are doing by not providing safe mobility to them in our public transit systems is that we are losing this captive user. We are losing onto our business, and then we are complaining that the share of public transport is not getting up, it is declining. So I think if you keep women at the center of your decision making and see women as your key commuter category, I think there will be a complete change in the way you probably provide services and perhaps be able to capture them as your main passengers. So I would totally disagree with the fact that we don't need separate, buses for women and all. I mean, I am a person who was a public transport user in my school days, and I came to Delhi and I left using public transit just on account of safety, and my family would not let me get into the bus. and slowly I had a car, and now I'm a changed person, I'm using metro. Why? Only because of one reason, because I get to travel in a women's only compartment. I don't have to be subjected to the harassment that will be there in a compartment filled with men. I just don't want to brush along with men in the public transit. I think these are the basics we need to understand. I think my co-panelists have clearly highlighted all the problems. They are there in the literature, world over established. In most developing countries, cities, women are being harassed in public transit. They are the ones who take public transit more. They are the ones, who have a trip-chaining character men don't have. So when these the patterns of mobility of women are quite well established. I will not agree with anyone who will say that we don't know, whether they know the problems of women. In fact, I just would want to pose a question to audience here. How many all of you would have women in your houses, wives, mothers, daughters, sisters. How many of you would want to, let your, women in your family get onto a bus? And perhaps a lot of you would have bought a scooty or a two-wheeler or a car. I will not be surprised if I see a hand raised from all of you if I ask this question. I think most of us would want to or have already bought a scooty or a two-wheeler. So you see that it's not only the public transit planning, the overall transportation planning for the city that needs to acknowledge this phenomena. We're talking about congestion. We are talking about traffic jams. What is happening? We are buying more personal vehicles. Not for me. As the head of the household, I have one car that probably is enough. But I want one for my wife, probably want one scooty for my daughter. And this entire phenomena is because I don't want to get onto the bus. So I think there is a lot of food for thought here. We know the problems. We know the characteristics of women's travel patterns. We need to probably go back to our homes, talk to the females in our family, and just that will perhaps be a very good beginning, and ask them, what would make you shift to public transit? And for me, it was a very, very simple answer, that I want a women-only compartment in metro or a bus. I did not get that in a bus. I got that in a metro, and I easily switched from my car to metro system. It is cheaper. It is relaxing. I can, read. I can do a lot of things on my phone. So what I need is that kind of freedom and choice, which sadly is not available. It's only Delhi Metro, perhaps, and a few more examples that may exist in our country. So that's the point and a question I would leave you all with. Thank you.
Now I will call upon Ms. Sarika Panda from WRI India.
Good morning, everyone. I think all my co-panelists has been discussed about what need to be done in the public transport in terms of operation, in terms of infrastructure. I just want to highlight how to sensitize people towards it. Basically, highlighting about sensitizing the bus drivers and all that. In this note, we are trying to say it's women's safety or safety for women. So in this node, in Gurgaon, we are starting a campaign called Let's Talk About Women's Safety. And in this, we are trying to get all the stakeholders like educational institutions, RWAs, the corporates come together and address this issue of this women's safety. And regarding this, we have finalized certain format, like how to involve the stakeholders into addressing the safety of women in the city and in the public transport itself. Like Gurgaon is a mess of not having good public transport and planning for a good public transport. So when we are planning, in the planning stage only how to address this issue. So in this note, we are doing a women safety audit, which Kalpana is helping with the safety pin app. We are trying to have 1,000 sample across educational institutions, going to RWAs, going to urban villages. Like we always neglect these areas like educational institutes. That's why we are seeing the increase of using private mode of transport to drop your kids to the schools. again our kids feel unsafe in the bus. It's either a bus driver or a conductor in the schools itself with the staff, how to sensitize them towards, how to protect our girl gender basically. So all this kind of how to engage the RWAs, who are the major stakeholder in the city, how to engage these RWAs to create this awareness, how to engage the corporates, where the private cabs operators or their shuttle services are going and operating, how to address that in the corporate itself from the top bosses, not from the bottom approach where only drivers or conductors getting training. It is very essential to sensitize the top bosses in the corporates also to address this issue. So these are few points which we are going to start in Gurgaon and hope to see in other cities also to address women's safety in the public transport. It's not about bus only, it's about autos, it's about the shuttle services that corporates using, it's about the school buses. That's also part of public transport. So how to address and sensitizing them. So these are the few parameters: doing audit, creating awareness campaign through talks, some organizing TED talks in the schools and RWAs, through Nukkad Nataks. That is one of the greatest mode of creating awareness, where people really can see and get connected what is a harassment is actually. So these kind of, I think, sensitization, long run campaign will also help to address this issue. So I think talking about this, how to address this kind of sensitization workshop in all these SUT is also very important. Kalpana is there to help with safety pin. So I think that will be a lot of discussion during the tea break regarding this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my fellow panelists. In fact, the topic was women's safety and challenges in public transport. Because of shortage of time, other things cannot be discussed, and my fellow panelists have given good presentations. They are more experienced in the issues of women's safety and their issues in the public transport. But one of the many important things which have emerged is that if you make the public transport safer, maybe we can have lesser number of cars or personal vehicles on the roads. So that will reduce the congestion in the towns. So we have here the ASRTU members, their officials, and the SRTU can plan the public transport in the towns, in the semi-urban areas, in the rural areas in such a way that women get a preference, they are more safe, so we can reduce the number of vehicles which are registered and moving on the road. Now we are short of time, but we can take some questions, maybe 5 to 10 questions depending on the time. I request the audience, if you have some question, you can ask questions, and please also name the person who want the answer from.
Sir, thank you. Dario Hidalgo from WRI Embark. I would like the comment, especially from the women that are really experienced on addressing these issues, on the bus only or pink buses type of approach. From the planner's perspective, at the end, women start receiving less service, less frequency. So what is your take on that? Thank you.
Pink buses. Yeah, Amit.
Yeah, I think, Dario, what you are saying is the experiment around women-only buses, right? Yeah. Or what we have seen in Gurgaon, the pink autos are women-only autos. And I think if we are, and you are very right, that if we are having services which are only dedicated to women, as against a certain portion reserved for women, there are two different approaches. Because if you have dedicated service of women, definitely the supply goes down dramatically, because the way we plan things is also an issue. But I think reservation of seats and enforcement on reservation of seats might work a better way. I don't know what Kalpana has to say, but this is my personal experience.
that people are struggling with. What is the solution to it? And it's a difficult one. I think there are certain moments and certain kinds of spaces it's important to have women-only spaces, but it cannot be the total solution, because what happens is then options come down. If you have a woman-only bus, it will only function once in half an hour, once in an hour. You'll not have that frequent this thing. The second thing is, for example, just the example of the Delhi Metro. Because there's a women's compartment, many women have complained that if they go into the general compartment, they actually get hostile looks. So the point is that by giving women spaces, you are taking away public spaces from women. And I think that's an important test we have to talk. We have to eventually work towards making all public spaces safe for women, not only creating some spaces where women can go and not have to interact with the rest of the world.
Yes, there was a question from this side.
Sir, I am Managing Director from Goa State Transport. Actually, it's not a question, but I want to say something. Because I have been attending many conferences, especially regarding women safety. My point here is that, how safe is a woman, not only in the bus, but wherever you go. Take for example, in your own house. There are so many instances where the fathers, where the husbands, where the brothers are involved in all this. So you need to change the perception. It is not the woman, but it is the men. Because I have 2 kids, a son and a daughter. And all this time I've been telling my daughter, don't go there, don't go this, But now I've changed my perception. I've been telling my son, see, you're a boy and she's a girl. She needs to be safe. And you're the one who's going to make her safe. So it's high time, you tell the men that it is the men who requires to be sensitized and not the woman. It's like you're putting a woman in the cage and leaving the men out. It's the men who's to be put in the cage. That's what I wanted to tell.
Any other questions?
Sir, sir, here. Yes. My question is to Ms. Kalpana Vishwanathan. See, the survey reports I have seen that 95% women are victims. This, I feel somewhere the sampling, either sampling must be wrong or the survey figures must be wrong. 95% passengers, the women travelers, if they are victims, then it's a very serious concern for the entire country, not only country, entire world. Let's see, you go, say it's 95%.
No.
Just, if you can just elaborate this thing, that survey. Survey.
No, I'm actually, there's been no mistake. And if you looked at the Bangalore survey, they said that 100% of the women said that they face sexual harassment. So it's actually a very, very pervasive problem which we are not beginning to recognize the extent. In Bombay, the survey has been done. In Kerala, the survey has been done. In Guwahati, the survey has been done. In Delhi, the survey has been done. Now in Bangalore, he talked about it. 90-95% women are saying at least once they've faced. And another 30-40% are saying it's a regular occurrence. So we actually have a pandemic of sexual harassment that's taking place in our country, which we need to recognize. It's not a small problem. It's actually a big problem, and I'm glad you asked the question. So, there's no problem in the data.
If in our country we have respect for women, and even if it is 10%, then we should be ashamed of this.
That's no doubt. That's we have to take call.
As he told, as the gentleman from Goa told, we have to do self-thinking, improvement in the behavior of the men. After all, every family has women folk. Your daughter is there, so even if it is 10%, we should be ashamed of this.
But sir, 95% may be too exaggerated. It seems.
We don't dispute the. Let us not dispute the data. Let us take the issues. Okay. We leave it with a general idea. Don't go on data.
Our sample, every woman said they have faced one or the other form of, issues while traveling or at the bus stops and so on. Interestingly, while doing this research, we also visited BMTC's call center and spoke to the colleagues there. And they said, when somebody calls on the call center, among different codes, they have given one separate code for women-related issues. And it has been running for a couple of years, and they have hardly received 1 or 2 complaints on that specific call code. So I think what is really happening is that women have those who travel regularly, they have come to terms with condition that this is part and parcel.
And in a country where we worship the women power, we have to take corrective actions in this. Yes, please.
So I'm Dr. R.S. Minhas. I'm Chief General Manager of the DTC. I have just one question. Just I've come to know that more than 800 crores in Nirbhaya Fund is lying unused with the ministry. 1 year back, DTC has put as a pilot 3 CCTV camera in 200 buses, and these are running very well. Even police is asking for the clips when they require some investigations. So we are providing at about 50 instances. We have given these clips to the police also, and for our accidents also we are using these as evidences.
So therefore, yes, she told.
So 1 year back we have sent one demand of 306
See, we took data from TFL. I want to correct them. I wanted to ask a question, but this is the issue which has been settled long years back in public transport, that these CCTV footages are used as the evidences to prosecute people, and that is the future deterrence. Secondly, if you have an emergency button and there are too many emergency buttons being pushed, then through the CCTV footages, the frames can be taken at the central control room and seen whether it's a false alarm or it's a true alarm. So CCTVs footages have been useful for prosecuting people, for seeing what kind of alarm it is, and see if you convict these kind of offenders and you publicize, it is going to have a deterrent effect.
So what I am asking is that we have sent a letter through Transport Department and Delhi Ministry for 306 crore to put CCTV camera in all the buses. We don't get any reply.
So as I told you, see, there was in the budget this fund was announced, and the systems have to come in. So it was distributed in 3 ministries, that is the Home Ministry, the Transport, and the Women and Child Development Ministry. So we gave, from the Transport, we gave a proposal of 1400 crores, which was sanctioned by the CCA. Then the Home Ministry proposal came, it was of 800 crores, and Women and Child Development gave later on another around 600 crores. So finally there was shortage of money, and it was declared, and then system started building, because you can't spend the government money without any tender, without developing a system, and you shouldn't, it's a hard-earned money of the taxpayers. So then the tenders came in. Meanwhile, it was found that this 1000 crore is insufficient for the projects which are available. So Home Ministry has already floated an RFP for providing a general control rooms in the state that will cost around 800 crores. So the proposal of the Road Transport and Highway Ministry was reduced to and allowed to have only 2 pilot projects. So we decided in Mumbai and Bangalore, so that the system stabilizes. Delhi already has this project, right? For Delhi Police project, we are posing this either to the ADB, not your transport, either to the ADB, the police proposal, either to the ADB or to the JICA funding.
Can I add? I wanted to add something about the CCTV cameras. CCTV cameras are useful after the incident has happened.
Therefore, that is also, see, deterrence is also, yes. If you can't prosecute people and convict people, yes. Then it's of no use. Yes. People will keep on doing that. Yes. So a lot of research have taken place. If you discuss with the TFL London, we went at a full day session with them. You must see in what way are they using the CCTV footage.
Yeah, so we shouldn't do away with CCTV cameras, but we should also think of other measures which might actually stop the crime from happening in the first place.
Of course. Please.
Good morning, sir. I'm Om Prakash Pal, Additional Transport Commissioner, Chhattisgarh. So we all have travelled in public transport at some point of time, sir. It is what I feel, sir. It is the kind of people who travel in public transport, the kind of language they use, their body language, which becomes intimidating for, especially for the ladies and women passengers. And when we are talking about safety, it's fine to talk about reserved buses for all women buses, all women compartments, pink autos. But the solution, if we are looking from the point of view of women who are traveling, it lies in some kind of security which is provided in the bus itself. Providing security staff in the bus can be a solution, sir. We have a large number of buses, so obviously the security cannot be provided in all the buses. Police itself is hard pressed, they will not be able to provide security in each bus. So why don't we think of special security force or some kind of extra fund to the state where they can create their own security force, totally dedicated to public transport, where the security personnel travel in the buses. If not in all buses, they travel in at least few buses, which could then be specially marked or something, whatever name you can give, which women also know that these are the buses where security people are traveling in the bus, and they can use those buses and feel more safer.
You mean they can be random marshals who can be going on the buses, yes, and they can be catching hold of these people and maybe convicting few of them?
No, sir. It's not about surprise checking. Say you have 100 buses.
Yes, so there are different proposals.
You don't have 100 people.
So why don't you start it in Chhattisgarh?
In 20 buses. Chhattisgarh does not have a this public transport system, not very well developed in Chhattisgarh.
No, but you have public transport.
We don't have public. We don't have.
No, but you have public transport system. No, you may not be having road transport corporation, yes, but you may be having. In the permit condition, you can always try to have a opening all around. You can, in the permit condition, you can make it compulsory that this kind of marshals have to be provided in every alternate bus.
No,
then
sir, what I am talking is, if you have 100 buses, instead of providing security in all the 100 buses, you at least select 20. Give them some special marking that these 20 buses have security personnel around the whenever the bus is moving, there are 2 persons or whatever.
So this is a good suggestion, but it's a good suggestion to be implemented by the states. Yes,
we are in the very initial process of introducing city buses, sir, and it is quite safe for women. Of different surveys have proved.
You are saying that
different surveys have proved, and they say.
Have you any survey reported?
It is the perception. It is the perception of all the different NGOs and women organizations in Chhattisgarh that Chhattisgarh is generally very safe.
No, it is a good suggestion. Noted. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Any other question?
Myself, More, I am Joint Secretary from Government of Maharashtra. The discussions are going on. Discussions were going on. Discussions will go on. My humble suggestions to the government, if ASRTO is really interested in solving this problem, they should prepare a perfect plan of the women's safety in the public transport, make a budget for that, and through our ministry, go to the parliament, get the bill passed, allocate the budget. Ample budget is available in the government of India. So many people there are from finance departments. There is no question of budget. It's a question of will. Nobody is interested. Nobody is serious.
Are you from Government of India?
Yeah, I am from Government of Maharashtra.
So how can you speak on behalf of Government of India then?
No, I am not talking of Government of India. You try to understand the gravity of my words.
No, everybody
understands. No. You are talking that budget is short. No, budget is not short. We can allocate the budget properly, but we should have a proper will to solve the problem on the first priority. We are not giving the first priority to the solution. We should give the first priority to the solution. As that Goa man told, as the second person told.
What I am stating is a fact.
Please let me talk. You can't disturb me while talking. Please let me talk. Yeah. Nobody is talking to the base. I am talking to the base. So many years discussions will go on. It will go on. It will not solve the problem. If we are interested in solving the problem, we should make a proper plan. We should go to the parliament. We should solve the problem with allocation of a proper budget. This is my humble suggestions to the chair.
No. So what has happened, the Home Ministry's solution was more broad-based. It was not only based on giving solution for public transport, but all the places. So what happens, it is taking inputs from different sources. Why only transport? They have told even a woman standing, say, anywhere in the market, if she calls up a number, that will go to a control room and her location will be tracked by a mobile, and it will go to the police control room. Police control room will inform the nearest patrol, and the nearest patrol will come to her help. So this is a wider proposal. So it was a thought of the Finance Ministry and the Home Ministry that this solution should stabilize. This will work not only in the public transport but in other sectors. So solutions are being provided. Maybe we are thinking that the transport sector is not getting many. So another thing is, if this is stabilized, we have to see whether the money is required in the other sector or not. So this is again pan-platform solution, which may be a better solution. See, when people allocate money, people see that whether there is a duplication or not. If there is a duplication and it's a hard-earned taxpayers' money, then we try to avoid duplicate expenditure. So nothing is being stopped. This tender is out. They are going through the RFP stage, and this will also help the transport sector to become more safe for women. Any other question, please?
Mumbai and Bangalore is taken.
Pilot project. We want to roll out later on. No?
So what about other cities, sir? At 800 crores are lying. I was told just 800 crores are just lying. So states have their own requirements.
800 crores were not spent. It was declared by the finance minister at that time. It was a starting declaration, and at that time the projects were not on the table. Now the projects are on the table.
So
see, you in the budget a scheme is announced. A scheme is announced, then the RFPs are made. The project has to have a stakeholders consultation, and it goes through the bid. So we also from the transport department had made the RFP. 4 months back we had uploaded it on the website, but then there was this shortage of funds. So we were advised by the higher officers to curtail it to 2 pilot projects.
Sir, for a state undertaking...
So we are also aggrieved. See, like you are saying, we are also aggrieved, but you will have to finally understand something that
Sir,
finally it's the finance
from UP, Uttar Pradesh, we have requested for 19 crores for state undertaking buses. We are going for CCTV and other things, sir. Emergency button, CCTV and GPRS. So we are requesting many times, but we are not getting funds. Then once this pilot project money is given only for this pilot project, our project will held up. So 19 crores, you allocate 19 crores out of these 2.
This is not a forum to decide on the money, na. I am not here sitting
sir,
with a checkbook to.
So if really we are concerned, as our colleague said, so we have to show concern for all other.
We will upscale it, escalate it to that level.
So
yeah.
It's not forum, but we have to sensitize our bosses, our bosses, sir, secretaries, ministers.
Noted,
unless we sensitize, then they cannot take decision. That's what my point of view is. Thank you, sir.
Can I have one small suggestion, sir? So if some kind of toolkit if ASRT prepare around these 4 issues: infrastructure, vehicles, services, and this. And if that toolkit can be then disseminated to all the STUs and they can use it for planning, I think it will also help in solving some of these issues.
So good suggestion has come. This can be done. Yes, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether, I came in a bit late, but I was just wondering whether the forum or if there are views on having women conductors on board in addition to CCTV, having women conductors on board, which gives a sense of some security, and you may have random marshals.
Some road transport corporations have already tried this.
Yes. Yeah. But what are the pros and cons of that, and why are we not exploring
Please,
it further?
can you hand him over the microphone? There are many experienced people. No, you are replying to her question. Yes.
I am Chairman Managing Director, Kerala State Road Transport Corporation. Madam, I have 60% of my conductors women. But I have a problem. My problem is, they don't come regularly. They come, they vanish.
So, my panelists say this is your view.
Yes.
If a women officer says this, then we'll accept it.
And sir, one more thing. Our friend from Chhattisgarh was saying you need a marshal for checking. We have inspectors who goes on checking. I have about 800 people checking around my buses. All these things also comes under their jurisdiction. But women conductors, when they grow up to become an inspector, they ask for category change. So there ends the issue.
Can I add?
See, panelists can't solve your problems. See, you must be accepted. Solution has to come from within. He says you can discuss with him on lunch. Any other questions?
Just one more perspective, that in addition to the perspective of the bus operator who hires the conductor, so the employer perspective, we must also have some feedback from the users to say whether they felt safer when there were women conductors, and it should not just be a unilateral view of whether they were on time and they wanted only morning, usual hour shifts and not abnormal shifts, etc., etc. Those will always be issues with women conductors.
So when we conducted the survey in Bhopal, women did actually say that they feel safer if there are women conductors. But the problem is we don't necessarily think about how safe are the women conductors. Exactly. So we need to provide for their safety. So that the measures like a cell which actually looks into their problems is not available in most of the exactly in the public. So you need to create that infrastructure before you can use those measures.
For corporation, when we earlier talked about getting women conductors and drivers, one of the issues was there were no women's toilets in the. Now you have to provide basic. You have to look at those issues, and I think it's important. I think it's very important, not just conductors, drivers also. And I think actually in Delhi they've begun the process.
I think we have now enough questions because the second panelists are also here and we have encroached upon their time.
May I please request
this can carry on during the tea time and the lunch break also.
Yes.
So other panel, we have to respect the other panelists. That's also an important discussion. And we can carry on the discussion for the tea break or the lunch break. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Session Chair Shri Banskar. May I please request our speakers to kindly remain with us on stage. Thank you, Chair and panelists, for your deliberations. Each town, city and the country needs to provide safe and viable public transport for women. Lessons need to be learned from mishaps and mistakes. The time for making the important changes and implementing them was yesterday. That is how the situation and this particular issue needs to be addressed. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude this session, may I now request Shri Bandyopadhyay in his capacity as chair of this session to kindly present the mementos to our panelists here. May I now request him to kindly present a memento to Dr. Ashish Verma, to Ms. Ranjana Menon, to Ms. Ashima Tejas Ghate, to Ms. Kalpana Vishwanath, to Ms. Sarika Panda Bhatt, and also to our presenter Mr. Amit Bhatt. May I now invite Shri Anand Rao to kindly come onto the stage and present a memento to our session chair on behalf of ASRTU. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With this, we conclude the first panel discussion on day 2.